Welcome to Pieces of China, a series that tells the story of China one object at a time. My name is Dinda Elliott. I'm the Director of Programs at China Institute. And as many of you know, China Institute convenes a host of programs on arts and culture, business and technology throughout the year. Pieces of China is one of my real favorites because the storytelling and personal passion helps bring China to life. And we want to thank the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and Confucius Institute for their generous support for this series. We are so excited this morning, Daisy's time, to have with us Yiyou Wang. Dr. Daisy Yiyou Wang is the Deputy Director of the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Daisy specializes in the history of collecting, lacquer, Qing court portraiture, and the history of photography in China. She was curator of Chinese and East Asian art at the Peabody Essex Museum and the Chinese art specialist at the Smithsonian's Freer-Sackler. Daisy's going to talk this evening about a special portrait of a Chinese empress. She knows a lot about this subject because she co-curated the groundbreaking exhibition, Empresses of China's Forbidden City at the Smithsonian a couple of years ago. So please join me, Daisy. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. Let me just ask you, I'll just kick it off with a quick question for you, and then you can bring on your slides. Tell us about this painting you have chosen and why you chose it.
Good evening, Dinda, and good evening, friends. It's such a delight to come back to China Institute, which is one of my favorite spots in New York. I used to work at the Asia Society, so during lunchtime, I always do my lunch thing, that is stop by your wonderful place and I participate in wonderful programs and see wonderful exhibitions there. So it's such an honor. So today, the piece of China I want to share with you, as you mentioned, is a portrait of an empress. Before I dive into the PowerPoint, I would also like to thank my dear colleague, Jen Stewart, the co-curator of Empresses of China's Forbidden City. We embarked together as twin sisters, a journey to look at the trajectory of life, look at the texture, look at the life inside a Forbidden City from women's point of view. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so grateful to my colleague, Jan Stewart.
Wonderful. So glad to have you with us. And Jan is here, by the way. So Jan, thanks for joining. Hi. And we've got a ton of people. It's the people, listening in tonight. It's a who's who of everybody in the Chinese art world. So we're all very excited to have you, Daisy. So yeah, so tell us about the painting and why you chose this painting.
Sure. This painting is what I called my Chinese Mona Lisa, and you'll know why. And you will see why. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is a detail of the portrait of Empress. Remember, this is a near life-size portrait, so you're really looking at incredible details. So just look at her eyes, and look at her, the upturned corner of her soft lips. You know why I called her my Chinese Mona Lisa? Her name is Empress Xiaoxian. She lives in the 18th century. She came from an elite family and married at the age of 15. Of course, by today's standards, pretty young, but that was pretty standard age for women to be married at the imperial court. When she married her childhood sweetheart, the future Qianlong emperor, I would call them childhood sweethearts, because she was 15 and Qianlong was 16. So it's a really wonderful love story. And after that, they were married for over 20 years. And Qianlong really appreciate her, not because of her beauty, as you can see here, but also appreciate her talent, appreciate her virtue. She get along with everybody. That's not easy. You probably watch a lot of court in palace drama,
right,
or whatever.
Right.
Court
Yanxi Palace, yes.
Exactly, exactly. She was respected from the maids to other palace ladies at the court, which is not an easy thing. She was also known as a very kind person, very generous, very thoughtful to her to her mother-in-law. So she also fit in this Confucian idea of filial daughter as well.
Mhm.
However, she also had a very tragic life. She had 4 kids, and unfortunately, 2 sons died very young. So after her young son passed away, she was devastated, and she was also physically pretty weak after that. So Qianlong proposed to her that she could go with him on a tour to Shandong. So they had a lovely trip to Shandong, even went to the Mount Taishan. And
Wow.
Qianlong celebrate her birthday on the road. So happy family, right? He trying to cheer her up. But here, tragedy happened. She caught a cold. Probably not COVID, but she caught a cold and she died the next day.
Oh my gosh.
Totally unexpected on a boat, because they took the boat trip. And Qianlong was devastated at the time. Her mother-in-law was still alive. So her mother-in-law was around. So husband and mother-in-law basically witnessed the whole thing. So Qianlong was completely devastated. He actually immediately shipped her back to the Forbidden City, starting mourning periods. He visited her in her coffin 50 times. I counted a couple documents, 50 times during the 3-month mourning period. He was a busy guy and he has a lot to do, but he was so devoted to her. And after she passed away, in the next few decades, he composed over 100 poems to commemorate her.
Wow.
And of course, we know he has many consorts. He even had a second empress after she passed away, but he never formed such a close relationship with any woman in his life. So that was her story.
Amazing. What a love story.
And so, I want to share a little bit. Yeah, I want to share a little bit more about sort of the my stories of encountering with this fantastic woman, how she brought me even to Hong Kong and informed a lot of programs we're doing now. So maybe next slide, I could tell a little bit more stories.
Wonderful. Should we look at the next slide? Yep.
Sure.
Keep going, Aaron, I think. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So you're looking at the entire painting, as I mentioned, life-size, quite impressive. This painting, when I first encountered it was at the collection of the Peabody Essex Museum, and it was in really bad shape. So we had actually a conservation program at the time. Thanks to a generous donor, we're able to feature, after conservation, we're able to feature it. And really, you know, that kind of discovery really helped me and Jan to look deeper into the life of palace women inside of Forbidden City. And that really informed our exhibition together, Empress of China's Forbidden City, which was presented at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts, as well as Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian's Franz Sackler. So just show you a couple of the installation shots. Next slide,
Fabulous.
please.
That was such a beautiful show too. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I was able to see it.
Oh, thank you, Dinda.
It was incredible.
Okay, our next slide, please. So here are the childhood sweethearts. This painting is from Cleveland Museum's art collection. And you can see the Qianlong and Xiaoxian in their 20s after he ascended the throne to become the emperor in his mid-20s. So in this exhibition, what is really wonderful is that we have her portrait you just saw on the screen, as well as Qianlong's poem, is that long hand scroll next to her portrait. So we are able to connect our visitors at a personal level to the emotional world of these two lovely persons.
Mm.
And this also show you, yeah, this is actually a conservation studio at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston. The conservator, you can see the guy there, his name is Jing Gao. He's one of the most wonderful Chinese painting conservators around the world. And he was helping us to conserve two portraits of empress. This is another empress portrait, 19th century.
Mm.
Okay, next slide, please.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So this is what it looked like before restoration.
You can see, yes, you can see
gosh.
some of the marks that people put there. And this is a wonderful project because for the first time, we were very, very lucky to see the reverse of the painting, because as you know that slightly unlike Western oil paintings, that when we do conservation, we start from the back, because we noticed that the backing has a lot of problems, including foxing, including area of loss, creases. So we actually start from the back, taking the backing and different layers support. So you can see actually that's a view from the very back after the conservators took off all the paper support and silk support from the back.
I wonder, is that the next slide, or is that this slide that we're looking at now?
I probably have a little bit of lag because
yeah, Aaron, let's see that. Let's see.
That's okay.
There we go. Now we've got before and after. What we're looking at now is before and after.
Yeah. So you can see is that actually very obvious that the difference between before and after, we're so lucky because after the conservation project, we're able to feature this wonderful portrait at both venues.
How long did the conservation take? How long does it take to work on a painting?
2 years, like 2 years, 2 years,
Oh
because this size is not easy. And also, you know, we were very lucky. Museum of Fine Arts Boston was very generous to help us. So they also have their day-to-day work. So this is kind of, you know, when they have time to work on this.
Wow.
So on and off for 2 years.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Mm-hmm.
Sure. And we're lucky, I said the first times, because this type portraits also are in the collection of the Palace Museum. However, their condition is very, very good. So they actually did not have the opportunity to do more extensive conservation work. So we're lucky to see the back. So during the conservation project that we were very lucky to examine all kinds of details of this painting, including a title slip, a tiqian, on the back of this painting. As you can see, I blow it up a little bit, you can see. So it's a damask, it's a ling, and with inscription. So it says Empress Xiaoxian. That's not surprising, that's her name. However, we also are looking at the character says 左 left, or proper left. So that started all the investigation, like a detective. Next slide, please. So I was trying to figure out why left, you know, why,
yeah, what does that mean?
What it mean?
Yeah.
So we were able to, very, very luckily, we were able to look at the archival documents, all kinds, including the painting studios archives in the Imperial workshops, as well as archival documents or ritual documents, really showing the display context of this painting. We found it's not just an average portrait you see in art museum as a piece of artwork, right? It's a ritual object in a ceremonial setting, because we understand from the archival documents, this painting was actually originally made for the ancestral veneration rites held at the Hall of Imperial Longevity, 寿皇殿, in the Jingshan area. Today, you know, as a tourist, you go to Jingshan, you take some good pictures of the Forbidden City. It's north of the Forbidden City, but at the time, that was the location for the imperial family shrine called 寿皇殿. And that painting was made for that context.
Okay, and Daisy, can you tell us again who painted this painting?
Yeah, it was also fun because at the time, it's totally serendipitous. I thought I'm looking for a needle in the ocean, so I wasn't hopeful to find to pin down the date and the artist, because previously some scholars already proposed it was painted by Lang Shining, this Jesuit missionary painter at the court. But in fact, archival documents support the new attribution. So we're able to pin it down, the authorship to Qing, Ignatius Sichuboth, a European court painter. And also we found exact dates, 1777.
So can I ask you a quick question? So I'm fascinated that the painter was European, and I'm fascinated that they would have chosen a European painter to paint something that was for ancestral veneration. Was that unusual, or were there tons of European painters doing the important paintings at that time for the palace?
Yeah, I would say it was not unusual in 18th century at the Qing Imperial court, because it employed many European painters at the court, including Lang Shining. Lang Shining died. He died in 1766. So this painting is 1777, almost 11 years after he passed away. So that's why we said, oh, it's not him. So go back to your question, why European painters? Usually for this large portraits, we found it's very common for European painters to collaborate with Chinese court painters. And there's a very clear division of labor because of their areas of expertise. So divide and conquer. And sometimes this is rushed order sometimes too, because it's for an occasion. So we found in archival documents for this painting was done by 3 artists, court artists, the European one for the face usually, because you see this kind of unusual three-dimensionality of the face, right? You see sort of the modeling, all kinds of things, her face, but her costume, other things are also beautiful, but they appear a little bit flat and highly decorative and detailed. And that was done by 2 collaborating Chinese artists.
How fascinating. Wow, that you were able to figure this out. Okay.
And we were able to actually reconstruct digitally the display context. In the center is the Qianlong Emperor aging. He's probably in his 80s and even 80s, so probably 70s. And then you see on his left-hand side, that was Empress Xiaoxian. And that's why left is on his left. But also that tells you so much about, the gender division, talked about also her status, because there are 2 empresses. So emperor in the center position is most important. And then you have Empress Xiaoxian on his left, and left is more important than the right. 左尊右卑, right? So who is the other woman on his right? That woman is the birth mother of the next emperor, Qing Emperor, Empress Xiaoxian.
Wow.
But his primary wife, Empress Xiaoxian, still is the most important in the imperial harem.
This is amazing. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Yep. Okay. So next slide. I'm almost done, so don't worry. I have a little bit of lag, so
but this exactly. So this slide, I think maybe you haven't got it on your screen yet, but I think you've put the paintings in their position in the palace, right? You can see them actually as they would have been shown originally.
This is a vintage photograph, dates to 1930s or a little earlier. So that little figure is me. So just give you a sense of scale.
Okay.
I'm looking up. So it's very important. You look up at this giant and colorful and incredibly detailed portraits, and you can imagine the sense of sort of the sense of grandeur in the giant hall, in the hall of imperial longevity. And also you have a bunch of ceremonial objects, such as the lantern, the incense burner. So Also thanks to Jan Stewart, I was able to reuse this wonderful photograph.
Amazing. So a question for you. It's fascinating. There was a photograph dating from 1930 or whatever that showed where those paintings actually hung. But when you probably saw the space in that hall of Imperial longevity, and I'm wondering, it didn't look like that when in today's time. I mean, those paintings are no longer there, right? So it's very, very different now.
Very different now, precisely because right now the Hall of Imperial Longevity it belongs to another organization. It's not Palace Museum.
Oh my God.
However, they're doing a great job. They spent 2-3 years to renovate that space. Used to be Shaoniangong, used to be a educational space for youth and children
palace.
in Beijing. Yeah. And in the 50s, they started in the 50s to renovate that space. Now, actually, I highly recommend if you have an opportunity to go to Jinshan Gongyuan, Jinshan Park, check that place out. They worked with Tianjin University to restore that space. They did a really good job.
And what is it? Is it some commercial entity now, or is it a museum, or what is it?
It's the Park Service. It's the Park Service.
Oh my gosh! Wow, amazing. Okay, well, she does now. I will always think of the Mona Lisa when I look at this painting, because I can see what you mean, actually. That mysterious.
And I had so much fun. Yeah, we had so much fun actually looking at the details. Jen and I also quite interested in jewelry and costume, not just portraiture. So we were able to count how many pearls that she has, that kind of stuff. It was fabulous, and actually it was very accurate. Everything everything she's wearing conform to court regulations. So it's very correct.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So you mean there would be regulations pertaining to how many pearls she was supposed to have, or how many? Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. For example, if you look at earrings, it's kind of curious, right? You usually have one earring, but she got 3 in one earlobe. So that's regulated. That's part of her uniform attire for the court ceremonies.
Amazing.
And also we're able to display and borrow from Palace Museum a wonderful court hat.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so now, Daisy, we've had this amazing experience of looking at the Empress. Thank you so much for sharing that story, but we can't let you go without asking you to share with us some of your plans for this beautiful new museum. Tell us about the Palace Museum, the Hong Kong Palace Museum. When is it opening, and what will you be showing? What is it?
Yeah, I have to thank my piece of china, Empress Xiaoxian. She started the exhibition from the Forbidden City, and we had so much fun with her and with other treasures from the Forbidden City. So at the end of my Empress exhibition, I was a little melancholic, I would say, because, oh gosh, I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do a show featuring treasures from Forbidden City. I was really lucky. I feel extremely lucky. So I was waving goodbye to her, and then I received a phone call from Hong Kong. Yeah. And I got an interview, and I flew to Hong Kong, and they hired me as the deputy director of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, precisely because my past experience with the Forbidden City. And at the time, I had no idea there was something called Hong Kong Palace Museum being built in Hong Kong, in this beautiful district we called West Kowloon Culture District. It's a very ambitious culture and art development in Asia. We have a conglomeration of museums, including Hong Kong Palace Museum, M+, as well as theater, music center, all kinds of wonderful facilities. So So I came to Hong Kong 2019, right after we finished the Empress exhibition.
Amazing.
In Washington,
And what's the plan for the, well, by the way, we did a program just a couple of weeks ago where Lee, the curators showed the M Plus Museum, which was just wonderful. So tell us what you're planning in the Hong Kong Palace Museum.
So this museum is about, now I have to change from meter to feet. This museum is about 300,000 square feet. We have 9 gallery spaces. The total area for gallery space is about 80,000 square feet. So right now, right now we have 9 open exhibitions being planned, plus just a few special exhibitions after the opening in July 2022.
Wow.
So we were just a little busy.
Can you give us an example about of how this museum, well, it's called the Hong Kong Palace Museum. So how will it be different from the Palace Museum in Beijing?
Right. We're different. We share a lot of commonalities. Number one is we're a museum devoted to Chinese art and culture. But also promote dialogue between, particularly culture and artistic dialogue between China and the world. So it's really important that there are several palace museums around the world that we actually share a lot in terms of our mission to promote understanding of Chinese art and culture. So there's a lot of collaboration between us and museums around the world. Our main partner is the Palace Museum in Beijing, known as the Forbidden City, the UNESCO World Heritage Site. So we had this incredible opportunity, probably once in a lifetime again, to borrow over 900 treasures from the Forbidden City.
Wow.
At one time, for our opening, for our 7 exhibitions.
Wow.
For the opening. So right now we're really busy, doing the curation, publishing catalogs, doing learning programs and all kinds of things. But also I want to go back to a question about, what are some of the special things we're doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Number one is that we have both a global and Hong Kong perspective. That's really important because we're in Hong Kong, Hong Kong Palace Museum. So we have to articulate the Hong Kong relevance, right? Number two is that we want to be a bridge between China and the world. So it's really important that we're not just serving our local audience, but also an international global audience. So it's really important that we speak to a wide-ranging audiences. So that is really critical to us. Just to give a very simple example that in everything we're doing, there are 3 versions, right? Cantonese version, Putonghua version, and then English version. So that's how complex it is. But also I want to just come back to the Empress topic and to give you an idea about some of the approaches we're taking and how Empress have helped us in thinking about our open exhibitions as well. Some of the renderings of our lobby, our atriums, as well as beautiful views of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Next slide. Okay. Next slide. So remember our Chinese Mona Lisa? So she actually will be featured this time virtually in one of our exhibition. We have a focus exhibition. So sometimes, if you think about Forbidden City, you think about 1.8 million treasures, but we also have, we have 900 treasures, but we're really thinking about density. And thinking about how sometimes we can experiment with a single object. So this is an exhibition looking at imperial portraits. We're looking at a very particular group of portraits shown at the Hall of Imperial Longevity I just showed, because we are really thinking about the digital technology. So we're working with Jeffrey Shaw, who is a Hong Kong-based media artist. He's working with his team and our team to reconstruct digitally the original setting and the display of this group of imperial portraits, which are now physically in Palace Museum collection, as well as in a number of collections around the world. So we're doing this digitally, but this exhibition also will feature at any given time 1 or 2 portraits So this is object in focus type of exhibition. It's a large exhibition, but we're asking people to looking at colors, looking at iconography, but also we have a section on conservation. So we're going to invite our own conservators as well as conservators from Palace Museum, Beijing, to do conservation inside our galleries. So sort of conservation action, that kind of concept. And at the end of the exhibition, visitors also will have an opportunity to do Imperial selfies in our galleries as well. So it will be a fun show. In addition that, we also want our exhibition not just be didactic, but also be emotionally moving to visitors and connect visitors with our shows at a very personal level, and really through universal themes such as love and loss. So this is the rendering of the last section of an exhibition I curate with one of our curators, Dr. Nicole Chan. So we are looking at the one day inside of Forbidden City. As you can see, this is the evening time, just like your time, right? Your hours. Around 8 o'clock, the Qianlong Emperor is ready for bed. What he will do, many visitors will ask us. So some people will think, oh gosh, you got so many women, so what do you do? But we'll end the show with a bed, but also with a more imaginative approach. The show will end with the multimedia project. Again, designed and created by Jeffrey Shaw, this media artist. He is working on a project called Dreamscape, inspired by a Qianlong's poem called Dream, commemorating his wife. So Qianlong wrote this wonderful, sweet poem, and really really looking at his emotion. He just woke up. He wasn't sure whether he met his wife in dream or in real life. He's so sad about her. So he is weaving different poems in terms of using calligraphy, but also he's using a lot of objects she might have used during her lifetime to create the headspace of Qianlong. So visitors will walk out of this gallery thinking about something.
Oh, I just love this so much. And Daisy, what a wonderful thing that your new museum in Hong Kong is going to play that role, that you're kind of bringing a modern, more global sort of perspective, the works of the Palace Museum. I mean, how fabulous is that? So great. Congratulations. And we can't wait to visit it. It's been such a joy to have you sharing the Empress Xiaoxian's image and her story and the love story of her and Qianlong. So thank you so much. And I want to share with everybody, thank you all for tuning in this morning. We have another sort of phantasmagorical event on March 23rd, which I hope you will all tune into. We've got the wonderful Chinese artist Bing Yi, who creates these she's an ink artist, but she creates these paintings which sometimes flow down an entire mountainside in China. And she has, among many other things, she's created an imaginary dynasty called the Lotus Dynasty. And she and some actors, she's got a costume designer has designed magnificent costumes, and they've composed music for it. And she and some actors are going to perform a wedding ceremony from her imaginary Lotus Dynasty on March 23rd at China Institute. So it's going to be a kind of an art happening. And so I hope everybody will tune in and come. That's going to be in person. So I hope you will come in person. But Daisy, again, thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor to have you. And we're delighted to have you share with us your piece of China.
Thank you for this opportunity. Looking forward to more opportunity to work with China Institute.
Absolutely. We hope to get you back very soon. Thank you, Daisy. Take care.
Thank you. Good evening.
Bye-bye.